Jordan gave a lovely talk, and I thought, how am I going to follow that, and what really is the question? So I decided to be a clinician and say, I have a patient in front of me, and what are the issues the clinicians have, which may not be what the industry is interested in. But first of all, what's the problem? The majority of patients are asymptomatic. In fact, many of them are undiagnosed. In the Bay Area, about a third of our patients, or about half of our patients are actually undiagnosed when we went out and doing test and treat. Secondly, 25% of patients will die from either cancer or cirrhosis and end-stage liver disease, as you heard about this morning. And it's estimated of those who are perinatally infected, up to about 40% of men and 15% of women will die of cirrhosis or liver cancer. So this is a large problem. And there's increased risk of progression in males, in those who have younger age of infection, alcohol consumption, high DNA levels, all these things you know, co-infections with HIV or B or C or D, and even perhaps with different genotypes. So how do we determine what combination is required when we have the patient? By the age of the patient, the phase of disease, by the fibrosis stage, by genotype, by clinical status. That's really how we've determined when to give patients nukes and interferon. And should we be changing this with the advent of these new combination therapies? Should we do it by the level of DNA, by the level of surface antigen, by the activity of the immune response? Does that help us choose what patient to treat, or by new hepatitis B markers? I think probably the most important statement is one that's been made a couple of times today, that chronic hepatitis B is a dynamic and heterogeneous disease. It's not like Hep C, which is one disease. It's really easy. Hep B is really hard, and the phases are neither clear nor distinct. There's varying levels of surface antigen, even in patients who are very clearly inactive. So the immunologic status between the phases is very fluid, and I'll just use a recent paper to show this. It's a study from Mason in Gastro, where he looked at a number of young individuals, and all but one were under 30, so they're in the second and third decade of life, and found a high level of HBV integration and clonal hepatocyte expansion in these young patients, even those who were so-called immunotolerant, indicating that you have hepatic carcinogenesis even with young patients with early stage disease. Now, he didn't get the phases right. He had 9 immune-tolerant patients, but actually only 2 of them had normal ALT by the correct criteria that's been established over 10 years ago. But then he looked at core polymerase and envelope responses, and they didn't distinguish the phases. So here you have HBV peptides recognized in e-antigen, see if I can get this to work, e-antigen negative immune active, e-antigen positive immune active, and immune tolerant. Now, the only 2 that were truly immune tolerant are patient 2 and 3, and you can see they have the exact opposite response. So even if he didn't get it right, the point was correct. And then he looked at specific T-cell responses. So black is a positive response, white is you didn't get a response, and gray is they didn't do it. So if you look at immune tolerance, you see that you have responses to envelope and polymerase. And if you look at e-antigen positive, you have fewer responses, and in e-antigen negative, you have responses again. But just standing back and looking at it, looks like a bit of a mess. Doesn't really tell you anything. It tells us that we're not clearly defining what the patient in front of you is going through. And Stephen Loccanini's group with Renee Walsh looked at surface antigen epitope changes during treatment in 25 genotype A, those wonderful, easy-to-treat patients, who were on tenofovir, and found that even in this group of immune-active patients, the same, they distinguished 14 patients who demonstrated a surface antigen clearance profile, which was defined as reduced recognition or availability at both loops 1 and 2 of the A determinant. And they were different from 11 patients who had a non-clearance profile. They had no change in epitope recognition or just reduced binding at one epitope. And these epitope changes positively correlated with surface antigen loss and development of antibody to surface. And they found this clearance profile at 24 and 48 weeks, and it was strongly associated with significant decline in surface antigen. So this is very exciting, but it makes the point that we're not distinguishing doesn't fit for all the E antigen positive patients we have in our armamentarium. So, which patients should and can we treat with new drugs? Should patients be already suppressed on nukes, the so-called low-hanging fruit that everybody's testing? Is the risk-benefit different depending on the therapy, the age of the patient, or the phase of disease? It's very easy if someone's cirrhotic, you don't do any risk-benefit. You just leave them on nukes forever. Do different phases need different therapies? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then what surrogate markers are needed. So if we first take children and young adults, for whom the cure would provide the most benefit and the most quality of life gained, we should be putting them first in our treatment, because they're the ones who are going to have decades of productive life and no cancer and no cirrhosis. But when they sit in front of you, they're healthy, asymptomatic, taking violin lessons, busy with life, not really interested, their parents drag them in. So what's the ideal time to treat? When they're in high school, when they're just gone to college, where life is a mess, when they've just graduated, when they've just got married? It's very difficult. But for them, the HBV DNA is very high with the ALT normal, and studies, as you've heard all day, show altered but measurable immune responses. So they're not exhausted T cells. Perhaps they need an immune stimulant plus a direct-acting antiviral. And perhaps they also need a nuke since their HBV DNA is so high. But will patients or their parents accept hepatic flares? And I think that's the big question. Certainly, patients won't accept long-term therapy. Young people aren't committed to long-term therapy. That's for old people with hypertension and diabetes. What about inactive patients? The majority of hepatitis B patients achieve this state with low or undetectable HBV DNA, but with a tiny chance of clearing surface. They do have a lower risk of cancer. They do have a lower risk of cirrhosis, but it isn't zero. It's quite significant. And they look like they have exhausted T cells, although we heard this afternoon that maybe they have tired T cells. But what drugs do we need to enhance clearance? In these patients, perhaps checkpoint inhibitors and then an antiviral, because they will tolerate, if they're inactive, they will tolerate a checkpoint inhibitor. If you go back in the dim and distant past, and the young just read the literature, you can see the people who flared with interferon 3 times a week or daily were the ones who actually cleared. That was a good response. So a touch of a flare is good for you. But if we're doing cure studies, clinical benefit, we can't use clinical benefit as an outcome because that may take years to determine. So what surrogate markers can we use for efficacy to monitor success? And they're immunologic, virologic, and pathologic. A surrogate marker, as Harry said this morning, needs to evaluate the efficacy if a drug is superior or complementary to current medications, when a therapy should be started, adjusted, or stopped, and which patients will benefit most from a particular therapy. I think one point we haven't discussed is time to virologic rebound. We know that less than 50% of e-antigen positive patients rebound after stopping nukes, but nearly all e-antigen negative patients rebound within weeks of nuke withdrawal. So new therapeutics, I said they were low-hanging fruit, but it makes sense because if you do an add-on therapy to nuke-controlled patients, you may prevent or significantly delay rebound of viremia. And this add-on could be relatively quickly determined in e-antigen negative patients since the time to rebound is short. What about in nuke-suppressed? They already have a clinical benefit. Decreased inflammation, decreased fibrosis progression, better fibroscans, decreased but not absent cancer incidence. And many US patients, unlike Canada, want to stop the drug. And they will accept a liver biopsy if that's what they need to stop the drug. But others don't want to. They said, I'm happy. I take my antihypertensive, I'll take my nuke. Don't fuss. So these patients are ideal to study add-on therapies with antivirals or even with checkpoint inhibitors too. One thing we touched on was looking as a surrogate marker at infected cell number, where you could study pre-drug, on-drug, and off-drug infected cell numbers. And this has been done in hepatitis C with laser capture microdissection, with using a focused laser with a fully automated light microscope to study single hepatocytes. And they can pop them out and use in situ hybridization to detect viral genomes and mRNA levels of antiviral host genomes and mRNA of antivirals. So they can have actually, Ashwin Bhagalapal at Johns Hopkins has done this technique, and he's now doing it in hepatitis B with fine needle aspiration of the liver. Hard to do in a clinical trial, but there are a couple of sites that do it quite enthusiastically. So what about endpoints? There are a number of endpoints, and I'll quickly go through them. Current virologic, you can measure HBV DNA, surface antigen, quantitative, non-quantitative, and e-antigen. Remember, it's been stressed, there are two sources of surface, so you have to remember it may not just be cccDNA. Integrated HBV DNA can integrate the whole open reading frame of the surface gene with its regulatory elements so you can get surface expression separate. So quantitative surface has to take this into account because it may not truly reflect transcriptional activity. So how do we distinguish the two sources, and do we need better assays to do it? And I'm not a virologist, so I can't answer that. Current host markers, antibody to surface. We know that in patients with chronic Hep B, they have antigen and antibody complex together. So the antibodies we're measuring when we've looked at the epitope analysis are not neutralizing. So what do we need to do to get the best assessment of non-neutralizing, neutralizing antibodies? What are the antibodies that reflect true clearance and control of disease? Antibody to cure, it's been shown that these levels decrease with treatment and in patients who subsequently go on to lose surface. Experimentally, we've heard about correlated antigens, cccDNA, integrated DNA, HBV RNA, and quantitative e-antigen. But there are also ways of looking at exhausted T cells, and we saw today you could look in the periphery. You don't have to do a liver biopsy. Looking at PD-1, TIMP3, CTLA-4 expression, looking for memory cells in CD127, looking at cytokines to reflect inflammation, and surface antigen epitopes, a little more difficult, predicting surface clearance. And finally, I think the governments have a real concern is that there's low vaccine uptake in adults, and that should be our primary push as hepatologists. And there are still many chronic hepatitis B patients undiagnosed. Thirdly, many countries don't provide long-term therapy. It's easy for us to say, stay on it for life. You get 2 years, 3 years, then you're on your own. So we do have to come up with something better. And unapproved combination therapies have been studied and allowed by the FDA in Hep C and NAFLD and now B. The risk may be the highest in those with the putative most benefit. Should that stop us from doing it, since 1 in 4 deaths seems an outrageous number, and if patients knew that, they may change what risk they'd be prepared to take. And then lastly, I'd like to mention that side effects often come post-registration. So all is not over when the drug is registered. So there are many drugs in the pipeline, as Jordan very nicely showed you. And combination therapy, I agree with him, will likely be required for a functional or a complete cure. But the most important thing, I think, is selection of the patients will be critical. And finally, optimization of HBV endpoints are sorely needed. Thank you.